Another live stream, another very special guest, Jarrod Blackwell. Excited. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. And as we give it a minute here, I always like to not get started right away because it takes a minute to get people, clicking on their phones and tuning in and everything. So I'm going to give it a minute. But as always, we're going to hear from Jarrod, his journey into home ownership, how he feels about owning a home, buying a home, the future, all the fun stuff. And if you have questions as you listen to this story, if you're listening to it live right now, or if you are watching the replay, you can always put questions in the comments for Jarrod, or you can feel free to send a direct message to myself or Jarrod. We'll tag him in this video. So, all right, we'll get started. So, Jarrod, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You bought your house. This was your first home purchase?
Yep, first home purchase.
Yeah, okay. So first house you ever bought was in Drexel Hill, PA, April 2021. So getting a little out of COVID times, but still pretty much in the thick of it. COVID.
Oh yeah. Oh
April
yeah.
2021. 1 year we had been that was like 1 year we had been quarantined at that point.
Yeah. Yep. We interestingly enough, it was, from what I was told, it was like they hadn't been doing open houses. So when we pulled up to the open house, the line was literally down the block. My wife was like, no, we're not getting in this line. And I go, it's fine. Our agent was in line already. He saved us a spot. So we parked, we walked up, and it was like 3 in, 3 out. Honestly, I think after we left, I didn't even remember what the home even looked like because it was so quick. But after we left, because we had been looking at other houses and it was, the peak of the market, interest rates were in the twos. I was working at a real estate brokerage at a time, Compass, and being so immersed in real estate and around it, I said to myself, like, I would be stupid if I didn't buy a house right now. So I'm not saying that to anybody who didn't buy a house or wasn't able to. It's just me personally.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we actually had gotten engaged in June of that year, the year prior. And instead of doing a wedding, we were like, hey, let's use that money and invest in ourselves and our future and buy a house. We did do a wedding. We had a surprise wedding on our Halloween party, but so we got to kill two birds with one stone. But at the end of the day, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And it was really cool because when we walked through the house, I was like, hey, let's just throw an offer on this to see what happens. In that offer, we waived everything under the sun, waived all of our contingencies. We went, I think it was 25K over asking. And about, a couple days later, I got a call saying, hey, unfortunately, you guys didn't get the house. They went with cash buyers instead. And, we weren't disappointed because we were in that world. That's just what it was. I mean, we lost out on a couple other homes. So we were still looking. So that was like December, and then Super Bowl Sunday of 21, I get a call from Dom, my agent, and said, hey, I don't know if you remember that house that we walked through with the open house, but the sellers walked away from the cash buyer and you had best offer. So I was like, my eyes got big and my wife was like, what? And I'm like, we had best offer. And he was like, what do you guys think? And we were like, can we at least see the house first? Just because we didn't even remember what it looked like. So we ended up he ended up getting us another walkthrough. So we walked through the house and we got to rewrite our offer. So we got all of the contingencies back in. We even got a seller's assist. And what we did find out was that the cash buyers ran an inspection report. He sent me the inspection report, and I wasn't too familiar with what inspection reports should look like, but apparently it was an older version of an inspection report, and it had like all these symbols. There was no pictures, there was no descriptions of anything, but what they found was knob and tube. For those who don't know what knob and tube, it's an old electrical system that runs through the house. And based on the power we have in the modern age, it's a fire hazard because it can't really handle the amount of electricity that we power to our homes these days. So it's a lot of insurance companies, won't insure your home because of the fire risk. So got that back in, and they went through. We even got electrical estimate that the sellers even paid for, so we got half, 3/4, half of the home replaced for the electric that came, the sellers paid for. And here we are 2 years later.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yes, not knob and tube. Oof, yikes.
Yeah.
Well, your real estate agent helped you, go through all the inspection report and like what to look for and all that stuff. How did you go about finding and choosing your real estate agent to work with?
Great question. I mean, Dom's been my best friend for, remember, we're 18, 35, 17 years at this point. He had his license, and, I thought no better person to go with than him. So, he had got a lot of our friends great homes they were satisfied with him as an agent. So I chose him, and we had bright searches. I was scouring the internet just as much because of, the climate that we were in. And I saw this house pop up, and I was like, Dom, I want to look at this. And it ended up being the house that we bought.
Amazing. Okay, so you had a trusted source kind of from the beginning to go to.
Mhm.
And you didn't need to do too much like interviewing or whatnot. But are there things that for when people are out there like looking for a professional to work with, are there some things that you really appreciated about working with him?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And, my situation might be a little bit different from somebody who doesn't have an agent. And had Dom not been my agent, I would have interviewed multiple agents, especially that are more hyper localized to the area that I'm looking at. I think that's really important for buyers is, I love Dom. He did a great job for us. But also understanding, hey, if I'm looking in a specific area, it might make sense for me to just, interview some other agents from that specific area. But what I really loved about Dom is he didn't force us into making decisions because we wanted to buy a house. He ultimately gave us all of the facts, all of the red flags, all of the green flags, and explained them in a way that allowed with our best interests in mind, but also allowed us to make our own decisions based on what we could, one, afford, which is the biggest thing, and the long-term future of what this could be. So he took the time to walk us through, any and all of the documents, answered all of our questions in, a super quick time frame. He was easily to get a hold of and super responsive were some of the biggest things that I look for.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, so what was one of the more difficult parts of the process for you?
That so when we closed on the home, the electric wasn't due to be replaced after we had already closed on the home. So what happened was we closed in April. Our goal was to move in May. So that way it would give the electricians about 3 weeks to get the electric done, give us a week to clean, paint, and get everything done before we actually move in. So when we closed, the electrician was supposed to meet me there that the following Monday. We closed on a Thursday. Monday comes, I get a text, hey, I'm going to have to move it back a couple days. So then we finally meet a couple days later. The electric essentially took them more than 3 weeks to do. There were at one point, there were about 30 holes in my house, and I called to someone to come patch these holes. And I got a quote. Next morning, I get a call and say, hey, I'm sorry, we had to put more holes in your house. And I was like, well, how many more? There were 60 holes in my house. Mind you, when you're doing I had a contractor come through, and he said, holy crap, in so little words, because the holes were like this big, when in reality,
not like a little hole like this.
no, they were like this big. They were huge. And talk about nightmare scenario. My wife wasn't ready to move out of the city yet. And, she was down for buying the house. But like, imagine you walk into your home that you just bought, and it looks like a construction scene.
Yeah.
It wasn't something
Walls
where,
are missing, like pretty much.
yeah, literally. And they didn't do the patching themselves. So I'd have to find somebody to do that. So they were dragging their feet with getting the electric done. So here we're moving in, and the guy's still sheetrocking our home, and he's there at like 11, 12 p.m. in the evening
Oh my
doing,
goodness.
yes. So that was the biggest pain point, was thinking, okay, we're going to have the electric will be done in a week and a half from what we were told. We'll be able to clean, paint, and then move in. Nope, we were cleaning and painting and moving it at the same time. It was a headache and a nightmare.
And this was because you found that it was the old style of electric, the knob and tube, which had to be replaced. And was the seller involved? They paid for it?
Yep, out of their
Yeah.
proceeds.
So they paid out of their proceeds, but did you get to choose the company that did it? They just like give you the money, or they also chose
They also chose, that was part of like the stipulations, like they chose the contractor who did it.
Oh shoot. Okay.
But I mean, at that point, hindsight, prior to closing, it was like, hey, that takes a lot of work and energy off of our plate. But I knew there was a little red flag there, because it was like, you have to hope that the person that they chose is going to have your best interest in mind.
Right. Right. And they probably don't, because they're just like, gotta get this done, get this job done. Like,
yeah, they just got to get the job done and get out.
I mean, you would think though, the nature of their business, it's a service industry, they should be impressing you, doing their best, because you could be a repeat client, you can refer people. Like, oh my goodness.
Never again. It was a headache. Getting a hold of them, getting them on the phone, it was an absolute headache.
Wow.
Lights weren't hooked up properly. When the last day that they said they were done, he pulls me over and goes, "Oh, I actually missed this spot. Do you want me to put another hole in your house?" I was like, "No, I'm done." He left, and the refrigerator wasn't hooked up to the electric. The light, I had to call them back 2 months later, because the light in our dining room, they didn't even hook it up to the switch. So it was a headache.
That is supposed to be the most exciting part. I mean, it is stressful still moving, but like that took an extra toll. Like, to be like, all right, yeah, we're gonna have all the stress of moving, but also
Cleaning,
redoing cutting up the whole house. Like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, it was a lot.
But
we got there.
So how was the rest of the process? Like, what was the timeline from start to finish, if you can remember? Like, at what point you connected to your real estate agent, who was your friend? You started like browsing some houses. How many months, if you can give like a high level walkthrough, like when did you get pre-approved? What kind of conversations did that look like? When did you put an offer in?
So pre-approval was super simple. We obviously, being a first-time home buyer and, not understanding like, kind of how the little intricacies of it work. I was, an internal employee at a brokerage. I wasn't an agent, but, it hooked us up with a really good lender. That I know the gentleman, who's a great guy. So we ended up getting pre-approved. So we started looking in October. So we got pre-approved immediately. As a buyer, that's the first thing you want to do, get pre-approved. And then, we looked at a few houses from October to I guess January was that open house. So it was, I guess, October, November, December, about 4 months. Went under contract in, I guess, mid-end of February. And then it was a little bit of a longer close. So I think it was like 60 days. So then we waited 60 days, to close at the end of April, and then moved in at the end of May.
Okay. Was it because the sellers wanted to close later, 60 days?
Yeah, they wanted to close a little bit later, and we were super flexible, because we knew the climate and what the market was like. So we were like, hey, we will be super flexible. Even for the electric, we were like, if we have to split it with you or do anything like that, like, let us know. We are open. Like, we're willing to work with you however we can to make you guys comfortable.
Oh, okay, nice. So yeah, usually making like an average is like 30 to 45 days, but it's often that you can close longer, because maybe the seller was waiting to buy their next house, like where they have to move, or maybe the buyer is needing to sell another house, and like sometimes things don't always line up perfectly, and it could be a little bit longer than a 30 or 45 days average.
Absolutely. But they were looking for a place too. I know the sellers were looking for a place for a while as well. Nice. So we want to give them a little bit of flexibility to, find their next home as well.
Nice. How was the consultation with the pre-approval, the numbers? Like, do you remember like what you got pre-approved for versus then what you actually started looking at houses? Like, how did you decide on kind of that price
We just
range? What were the important things?
absolutely. I mean, I know a lot of it was really understanding our budget, right? What were we able to afford a month? And with that in mind, that translated into, where we were looking from a price perspective. So we just went through, really talked about, again, what our monthly budget is, with purchasing the house. Obviously, it's not like, when you're renting, all you're paying for is rent. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into that. And, understanding what could happen or what might happen is how we were able to decide, like, here's the price point we're going for. We knew that we were both working in Center City at the time, but we both knew that we were ready to get out of the city. Well, at least I've been there for 10 years, so I was ready to go to the burbs, but we knew we wanted to be close. So that's why we chose, and we heard nothing but great things about, this Drexel Hill, Havertown corridor. So this is where we really started looking. Homes were far and few between in this area. A lot of people have been here for years and are staying here for years. So there wasn't a lot for sale in this area, but I think a lot of it, you can be as strategic as you want. There is a little bit of luck that is involved with this process, unfortunately.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot of luck. Let's be real.
Yeah, but that's good because yeah, the monthly budget is the most important thing to remember. Like, it does not matter what you could get pre-approved for. It matters what you actually want to spend. And like you said, it's not just you're not just giving first and last month's rent. You have closing costs, a lot that goes into it. You have a down payment. You need to establish some ownership in the house. You can't just borrow all the money. That would be very risky for banks.
Absolutely.
So there's like money you have to consider. How much do you want to spend out of your savings, and what do you want to pay every single month?
Absolutely.
Then you can come up with that number.
100%. And that's what I was most concerned with. I wasn't really concerned with the monthly payment because I did know interest rates were low. And obviously, the more you put down, the lower that's going to be. But at the same time, I was more concerned with the closing costs, just knowing, like, what am I going to have to pay at the closing table ahead of time. So just ensuring, that we had a nice sized bank, regardless of what the closing costs were going to be, that we could, say, hey, we can pull this trigger, we can put a little bit more down, or we can put a little bit less down.
Yeah, definitely. So when you were first like starting to have those conversations about the numbers and everything, even before you find the home that you want, were there fees that you hadn't expected like before that kind of you had to ask about?
Not really, honestly. It's just understanding what the fees are and why they're being charged, I think, is
Right.
more the question. Just because, like, and even as someone who's, again, been in the real estate industry, like, there's going to be fees after that are going to be added that you won't even know what your total cash to close is until, like, 30 to 45 days before you close. You know what I mean? So you can get a good idea of what your payment's going to be like. But then obviously when you get down to the taxes and, what's still owed, what's not, what's been paid for already, what hasn't been based on the time that you purchase, is, some of the interesting parts about buying is you can get a good idea, but that could change by anywhere from 5 to 10 grand more or less the closer you get to the closing table.
Yes. Okay. So that's actually not a fair question because you had a background in real estate. So you kind of knew, like, most people are like, why do I have to pay all this? Like, what is all these line items?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still had those questions, even though I was still in real estate. But that's, kudos to Dom. He sat us down, and that's the biggest thing as a buyer you want to have is someone that's going to sit you down and walk you through that and tell you why these fees are what they are and explain a little bit about, the background behind them.
Yes. The why is super important. Yeah. It's like, this is why this money is coming out up front because people mostly don't understand that a big chunk of that money or the fees are really just your own money being paid in advance.
Yep.
Like, it's not, you're not paying somebody for, you are paying certain people for their services and their expertise, but you're just paying like your taxes for a year in advance. Not a year, but you're paying your taxes for like 6 months.
Yep.
Okay. But it's really just taxes you would have paid anyway for the property.
Absolutely. And then some extra cushion for your escrow account as well as factored in there. So that way you're not having to pay those, manually. They're coming out of your escrow account.
Yes, exactly.
And even
Taxes.
that part too, like understanding what escrow means, understanding, the the deposits and why they are and when they come out and those types of, I guess the real estate jargon, putting it to explain it to me like I'm five type
Yeah, yeah,
deal.
yeah. Yes. So can you explain escrow like you're five? Like,
I
what
mean,
is it?
I still kind of get tripped up, but it's an account to where you're kind of paying into, so that way when you have like your home insurance or your taxes, they're being paid out of that account, so you're not having to account for that money yourself to then have to pay that out as an individual. It's already being factored into your whole entire monthly payment.
Yes, very good. That's right. Yeah, it's just a third party account that
Yeah,
holds your money and then pays your money to where it needs to go. Moves your
absolutely.
money. It's just paying your taxes for you.
Mhm.
Easy. Um, how did you know that? Oh wait, sorry. One moment. Were there any other questions that you had wished you asked, or like wish you asked sooner, or like what more in depth with as you were getting started with the process?
Um, Not really. Again, Dom was really good at getting ahead of my questions before I even had them.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
I would say like some of the stuff with just, the importance of just saying like, hey, like don't buy anything, don't move money around, really just understanding what I shouldn't do while I'm in the process of buying a home. The one unfortunate thing that happened was my wife and I got into a car accident. I totaled my car while we were under contract.
Oh, shame.
Um, so it was like, obviously I knew like I'm not going to go buy a new car right now. So I just waited till after we settled. But yeah, like that, I wouldn't have known that and had a good agent and understood that, or, even a good loan officer, I would have potentially gone and bought another car because I needed another car. So, it was just getting ahead of the situations that do typically come up, but also the one-offs that come up here and there. I can't really put a finger on them, just so
Yeah.
this could happen.
Yeah. And why is that bad for people to just understand? Like, if they were to buy a new car or move money like from their checking to their savings or another account, but before they close, like, why is that important?
Because it goes against like your income, essentially, like what you're worth as a whole, right? So if I'm buying a car and I'm financing it, I'm adding more. My debt to income ratio is going to be higher than it was when they first ran my credit and
Yeah.
got pre-approved. So that's gonna change things, and I could get denied by the bank.
Yes, exactly. Very important. So you don't even want to open a credit card, not even nothing that will add more debts to
Right.
until you get the keys to the house, then do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
Okay, so you're browsing at houses, you go through all this, you pre-approved, you talked about the numbers, you're browsing houses. How did you know it was time to make an offer when you saw the house?
That's a good question. I mean, when we started, it was, hey, we like this house. This is somewhere where we could see ourselves, for the next, at that time, 5 to 7 years is what I was thinking. A good first home, a good place to start ourselves and build our family. Shortly after, it
Mhm.
came to, I'm just going to throw, excuse my candor, shit on the wall and see if it sticks because of how competitive the market was. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this house, I wasn't in love with it. I really was not in love with this house. But I was like, I don't know what else. I don't know how we're going to be competitive and or land a house in this market. I wanted to be a first time home buyer, but I was like, I don't even know if this is going to happen because of the inflation with purchase prices and the competition. So it was like, we just got to try something to see if it works. If we get accepted and we for best offer and we don't want to do it, we can say no, but at least putting ourselves in a position to be competitive and to get an offer accepted was something we had to do. So it was like, at the end, it was just like, all right, what can I live with? It wasn't about what do I need and or it wasn't about what do I want. It was about what do I need and what can I live with for now. And what is I look at it from an artist perspective. Like there may be paint on the canvas, but is there still empty? Is there still open canvas for me to do something with this home, or what can I do to make it my own?
Yes. And that's great. So someone recently said the 80-10-10 rule. So 80% of it, the house is what you absolutely love. 10% is what you could be changed. You could change, you could update, take away, add. And then 10% is you're going to live with it how it is.
Yep.
And so like if 80% of the things fall into that the category of, all right, I love this, you got to live with that 10%. You got to have the 10%. Like you're never going to find 100% be everything you love.
100%. You're so right. And we've had, I've had people in my network that had, it took them time to find a home because they were looking for that. And hey, that's how you want to do it. That's how you're going to do it. It's your house. You can do whatever you want. But being in the, again, so close to real estate and in this market, I was like, I'm willing to bend pretty far to get what we want. And we're so lucky. I mean, it went from a 5 to 7 house to I'm never selling this house.
Yeah, yes.
I'm going to move. I'm sure I'm going to move at some point, as our family continues to grow. But I always wanted an investment property, and this is hopefully going to be that.
Yes. Perfect. I was going to say, what are your plans for the next 5 years?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, it will be here for the foreseeable future, and continue to make this house ours. We didn't have, luckily we didn't have to do a lot other than the electric, and some cosmetic stuff, but we're still continuing to make it ours. But more so, why would I ever refinance this house with a sub 3 interest rate? It doesn't make sense to me. So at that point, single family homes aren't being built anymore, especially in this area. So, and especially for the cost that these are going for. So this could be a good, really, single family rental opportunity for me in the future, because people are going to want character. People are going to want single family homes and space that they're not going to be able to get in 10, 15 years from now, because they're not building them.
Yeah. So now maybe people are wondering, like, are you just saving up the money to have a down payment on a whole other house? Because what are people's options when they have a house and then they want to move? They either sell the house and use all that money from the selling the house to buy the next house. But if they want to keep it, do you just have money saved up, or can you use the equity from this house? And how would you do that?
Great question. So I mean, obviously I could do like a refi cash out. But I probably won't do that because I don't want to refi from a 2% interest rate to a 6% interest rate. I would probably, and I could be wrong here, but this is just based on what I know now. I haven't looked into it deeper enough yet, but probably maybe do a HELOC to take out that to use for our down payment, and or have the money saved for that down payment. So those are really my 3 options. I mean, probably, I'd like to err on the side of having the money saved, so that way we don't have to tap into other resources. But I bought this house for a reason. And when you buy a house, like, there are good things that happen. And I don't know what the true equity is, because I obviously haven't got my house appraised since we got it, but I'm at least 100K in equity right now. And from when we bought it to what houses are selling in the area for. So how can I use that to my advantage? If and when we do look to move.
Yes, great point. Equity, the value of your home versus how much you owe on your mortgage. All that in between is money, just like a bank. You can use it. And a HELOC is a home equity line of credit. A credit card is a line of credit. This is just a credit card, but you're borrowing it from your own self as the homeowner. You're borrowing it from the value of your real estate, of your property.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, well, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but why is home ownership important to you?
I mean, for me, it's like independence, right? Like you own your own place. Like I own land in Delaware County. I get to say that, and it's our little piece of land, and we can do what we want with it, and grow a family and grow here as people. But I mean, that's really what it means to me, is a little bit of independence and just have assets. Like, I think having assets is really important to me, that I could potentially, give my son, when he gets older. And keep that generational wealth within the family. But it also, it's not all, rainbows and butterflies. There are headaches with it. Um, but it's awesome just being able to be like, you know what, I want to change this paint color today, and I can do that because it's my house.
Yes, I love that. That independence, feeling of pride, and yeah, being able to pass down to your son and future children and family in general.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Very good stuff, Jarrod. Any last thoughts for anyone listening?
Yeah, I would say if you think you're farther away from reaching your home ownership goals, you're probably not as far as you think. I think if you are really dedicated to wanting to find that home, I think, outside of your agent, that's what they're there for, right? They're there to put in the work, but you as an individual have to put in the work as well. Because, there are diamonds in the rough that you could find that you might have to just look a little extra harder for. Really leaning on your agent as well in terms of agents work with other agents. They have off market opportunities that are available. So really leaning into those asking your agents, hey, are there any off market opportunities that, I could take advantage of? And more importantly, like I was thinking about doing this, I'm probably not going to do it, but if there's somewhere where you truly want to live, go door to door and tell people that, hey, I want to live here. If you ever think about selling your house, you can put your agent's name, you can put your information on there. Go door to door and leave notes that you want to live in this area. And if they're ever interested in selling, to give you a call. Like think outside the box and get creative.
I love that. And yeah, agents will do that from time to time. But yeah, if you that's right. Talk to your agent. Like they have strategies and ways. Like tell them, don't be afraid ever to say what you truly want. Say what you want, say what you don't know, say you don't understand something, be honest, be upfront, don't ever be afraid. There's never such a thing as a stupid question.
100%. I agree. I'm very
That's
much
great.
that type of person too.
Nice. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jarrod, so much. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. And